Hello, hello. What's happening? This is Tony Kimball, your host of Transforming Lives. I'm so excited to have you on today, tonight. Um, when we talk about transforming lives, we talk about this process that we look at. Well, this particular platform, um, the mission of it is to bring people on so that they can share their stories. And once they share their stories, they can inspire others to live a transformed life. Well, guys, it's no different. We're just talking to real people with genuine people with real lives, and tonight's no different. Um, I have his bio, but I've known this gentleman for so long. Um, and I was doing the math on my paper and I began to look at it. I said, hold up, I've known him for quite a long time. And I can recall my next guest of remembering him when I was in high school. And I can remember this gentleman um, being in different places within our school, having responsibilities, talking to us about life. Um, and it's very funny now that the very thing that he was doing, I find myself now trying to talk to students about life. Because a lot of times during that age period, you think you know everything. So I'm much appreciative and I see the value of what he was bringing to the table several years ago. And again, my next guest is Reverend Calvin Hawkins. He's a Mississippi State graduate and he's been in education for 26 years. He's the pastor of United Missionary Baptist Church. But listen, he did a curveball in his busy schedule. He dedicated, he decided to do research on the Yalobusha County history about 6 years ago. Now he's completing a book about the history on African Americans from 1870 to 1970. That's a long time. Now, this book is titled Under the Dusty Sands. Now, the book is supposed to be out in June, and just having a conversation with him. And I was like, look, can I get you on the podcast so you can share more about what you have going? So, no further ado, I have on my next guest, Mr. Reverend Calvin Hawkins. All right, sir.
Hello,
How
how
you-
you doing tonight?
I'm well. I'm well. Hear you well. See you well. All right. Hey, we got it done, right?
We got it done.
Good. So definitely welcome to Transforming Lives podcast. And I'm excited. It's amazing to see, as I was talking earlier, um, you tried to talk to our class. I remember directly, the classmates that I have, and I can remember you talking to us. And it's much appreciative of the time that you spent with us, talking to us, trying to get something to understand.
Yeah.
And I'm in your shoes now, so I understand it now. So first, let me say I'm sorry because some of the stuff I didn't listen to, but now I understand the value that you were bringing to the table. So I want to say thank you. Publicly,
Yes.
want to say thank you for starting out. So tonight, what we want to do is about sharing this platform so that you can tell us some upcoming things you have going on. But usually, what I want to do is kind of do a warm up question, kind of get us going to in this conversation. So the first question I want to ask is I talked about you just having being that person that was an influence in my life, just coming around. You think about the impact, but I want to ask you that question: who has been the most important person in your life, and share with the viewers about them?
No, the most important person that's been in my life is my aunt. Although she passed away a couple of years ago, I believe in 2013, she was probably the most person that influenced me to do the things that I'm doing now. She was an educator.
Hmm.
She was the principal at the public school for over 40 years.
Okay.
And she really inspired me to be the man that I am today. She believed in history. She loved family. First of all, she loved family. And
Okay.
then next, she loved the history of Yalobusha County.
Interesting. That's interesting. Okay. Well, cool. We all have those moments, and I'm looking forward to hearing how this is all rattling out. Just hearing that first part right there.
Mhm.
So we talk about the person that had influence on your life. Now I got the question to ask you: did Pastor Hawkins see himself becoming the person he is today? Tell us about it.
No way. No way.
Really?
If I can go back 26 years, 25 years, 30 years ago, I finished high school in 1990, which was 32 years ago. And I was a quiet guy. I was a
Okay.
quiet man. If I had the same personality way back then that I have now, there would be no way we would be on this podcast today. I would be way far away from Yalobusha, Cali, or Mississippi if I'd had this personality 32 years ago.
Wow.
So I'm a totally different person from then when you met me when you was in high school compared to how I am now.
Whoa. So I'm gonna sit back on that one because it's like one of those like you talked about curveballs. Like that's a curveball. Really?
That was a curveball. Yes, sir. I would have never thought that I would have been a pastor. I would have never thought that I would be still working in education. I would have never thought that I would even be writing a book. If you had asked me the same question 32 years ago. And I believe I have shocked a lot of people to who I have become today.
Okay. And it's a plus, and that's what transformation is about. It's about this progression that goes, and sometimes we don't know.
Right.
We just don't know. Wow, I'm a little shocked right there.
Well,
I understand, life. We go through life, but you're saying nope.
yeah. No one knows the plans that God has for you.
Right.
No
Yeah.
one knows. You don't even know yourself of what is in your future in the next couple of years. You just have to get on the ship and go with the flow of the waves and keep on moving. Just don't fall off.
Okay. So we've looked at just you saying, well, I didn't see myself, being at this particular point.
Mhm.
Can you share, some important lessons you've learned in life?
I've learned, and I tell young boys and girls this today, whatever you have in mind to do, do it.
Mm,
We're going through a time of life that life is so short.
gotcha.
And if you do not go out there and live your dream now,
Mm-hmm.
we won't say it will be too late, but you won't be able to enjoy it as much if you wait until you get older. For instance, I'll be 50 years old in September. So
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
if I had started 20 years ago, I could be able to look back to see what all I accomplished, writing a
Mm-hmm.
book or whatsoever, or being a pastor. I would have all that under my belt. But you see, I had to find myself.
Mm-hmm.
And once I found myself, God was able to put the puzzle together, and I was able to grab that puzzle and run with it. And hopefully the puzzle won't fall apart.
Right. We just nudged it a little.
Right.
And I think that's important for those that are listening. That number one, there's this what we call just self-actualization of just saying, hey, I recognize it now. Now I'm taking hold to it and I'm moving forward. I think that's important because sometimes, like you stated earlier, some don't figure it out.
Right.
And not saying we, is totally figured it out, but you've caught that piece, like you said. Like,
Mhm.
yeah. So, yeah, that's I'm understanding the by and by now. I get
Yeah.
I get that. I get the by and by now.
Yes, sir.
So, let's dive into the book, and it's titled "Under the Dusty Sands."
Under the Dusty Sands.
The just kind of tell us about it, and we'll kind of let it flow if some questions come about. I'm interested to hear about it.
Okay. First, I know the main question you probably will want to ask me is, why is this book titled Under the Dusty Sands?
Right.
If you remember going to your grandmother's house or your grandparents' house, they had old photo albums.
Mm-hmm.
And once they passed away, people took those photo albums and boxed them up. And when they boxed them up, they either put them in a closet,
right,
in the attic, or under a bed. During that time that those pictures are boxed up, sand has accumulated on top of them. And nobody knows how important or valuable or precious those pictures are.
Right.
Until somebody comes and asks, Mr. Kimball, do you know, and maybe a relative, and then you would say, my grandmother had a picture of that person. Let me go and try to dig it up.
Right. Yeah.
And that's when you went and you had to blow the sand off the box.
Right.
To dig into the box.
Right.
To find the picture that is valuable today in this historical project.
Now that's good, sir. Yeah, you laid that out really well. Because I see in the value of looking at our history. Number one, we don't want to repeat some of those things, but we want to understand it, right? So I want to know the history.
Well, the purpose, this is I'm sorry, I hope I didn't cut you off, but the purpose of the book is, if you notice, we're in Black History Month now. This is Black History Month.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about Black history, who do we normally focus on? We'll focus on Dr. Martin Luther King,
right,
Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman,
right,
and so many other ones that has made an impact in the Black history and also in our lives. But how many times have we just looked around us to see who actually impacted our community?
Mm-hmm.
What was if I asked you the question of what was the oldest Black church in Coffeeville, could you be able to tell me that? Or I asked you what was the oldest Black street, or who was the popular teacher way back in the 1940s or 30s?
Mm-hmm.
Could you actually tell me those things?
Afraid not.
No. And you're not by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What had happened was, the reason that this book came about was because I was invited to speak on a Black history program.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to bring this out. I wanted to stand in front of the church and talk about our ancestors, the ones that, they really helped build our community or build our county.
Right.
And I started searching. I went to the library. I started asking questions, and nobody could not answer those questions or other questions that I had about our community. So when I started doing research, I went to the library. They didn't have anything in the library. I went to the courthouse. I went to the just individuals.
Mm-hmm.
No one could answer these questions for me.
Really?
So guess what I had to start doing? Going out and research it to pull all this together. And as of today, all of this information has been pulled together.
Wow. So it just started as just wanting to be prepared in front of a congregation or in front of a crowd, and it turned into something that much larger, right?
Right. When I started out doing presentations in the Water Valley community.
Mm-hmm.
And the people there, the listeners, they asked, well, why are you not doing this for the whole county? So this book could have it could have been out probably 3 or 4 years ago. But then by me had to go to the whole county, I had to go a little deeper.
Right, right.
Deep under the sands.
Right. Yeah. Investigating, because there are things that, when you said, well, do you know the oldest black church? Right.
Mhm.
I couldn't go to Google real quick, right?
Right. That's right.
And those modern tools that we have,
That's
that
right.
you were going into the actual, the area to find this information, which is
That's right.
um that's great.
You're gonna be able to find out with this project. You're gonna be able to find out. There was 42 black schools in Yalobusha County. There were over 300 people that even fought in the war, the World War One, probably 200 or 300 that fought in World War II. You can be able to
Mm,
find out all the men's names that even fought in the Civil War and the reason they was even in the Civil War. Vietnam, it was kind of hard for the Vietnam and the Korean War because a
uh-huh.
lot of those people are still living. But you can be able to find out all this information, all the histories of the schools, or how they even got established, the churches. We had 50 something churches, some are still active and some are not. You can be able to find out all of this information within this one book.
Wow. So that's I guess it came to my mind is almost like this one-stop history stop for Yalobusha County.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, because when you talked about churches, you talked about schools, and even talking about when we celebrate our military forces, or
Right.
really knowing, okay, you know, you spoke of World War I, so
Yes.
that's yeah, like I heard about that in history class, but yeah, go ahead.
Do you realize, Mr. Kimball, that before Reconstruction, Yalobusha County had a African American as the tax collector?
No,
Do
no.
you realize before Reconstruction, this is during the time when slavery had just been abolished during slavery, that Yalobusha County had people that was on they called it the police, the board of police, which is the board
Uh,
of supervisors.
uh-huh.
This all happened way before 1870. And then to find research that Alcorn State University, which was once Alcorn College,
Mm-hmm.
that we had someone here, Aberdeen Spearman. He was the first African American from Yalobusha County to enroll at Alcorn College in 1872, which Alcorn College, I believe, was in 1872 or 1873. It was established in like in 1871, 1872. So can you imagine someone from Coffeeville, Mississippi, leaving Coffeeville, going way down to Lorman, Mississippi?
Yeah.
Can you imagine there in Coffeeville? There's two white houses there, and I hope our listeners hear. There's two white houses there on Oklahoma Street. One of them they're remodeling. They just painted it. Those two houses was built by an African American man, Mr. Goodwin.
Mm.
Do you not know that his daughter was one that married the president of Russ College?
Wow.
But not
Coffeeville.
his daughter married the one at college, Campbell College, and the other one, which was a Hilliard, I believe she's the one that married the one at Russ College.
Mm-hmm.
This is happening right here at Coffeeville, and no one has pulled out that history that we have all around us that has been buried. We have some
Oh,
strong history for Yalobusha County, which includes Coffeeville, Water Valley, Enid, Scobie, Oakland.
yeah.
I'm
Wow.
excited.
Yeah, you got now. Although I majored, I tell a lot of people, even though I majored, here's Jennifer. Wow, so much history that we did not know. Um, I love history. Like
Yeah.
I can sit in front of the television and the History Channel. I love history. I did math, but I love history. So
Mhm.
as much as I'm doing this interview, I'm still like, all right, I'm listening, but I got to conduct this interview. Like, I want to ask you some more questions. Like, who else?
Please ask.
Because when you talk about Alcorn, that's a long trip. I've done that
It
before.
is. Yeah.
And to know that someone was there early on from Yalobusha County,
Yes.
that is worth noting.
Yes.
Appreciate that. Um,
Because just think about it. When we think about 1870,
mhm.
what is when we talk about occupations during that time? What is the first thing that comes to mind?
It's pretty much slavery during that time.
Slavery, people on the farms,
Feeling
their
right.
farms. That's what we're looking at, not realizing that people was really progressing
Uh-huh.
before Reconstruction. They was
Yeah.
really progressing here in this area.
Wow. Yeah, here's this is Timothy Freelon. Congratulations, Mississippi State grad, pastor long term in education. Thank you. Um, one more. Here's Tiffany. She answered the questions. So she's still
Farmer.
answering questions, sir. Back when we were in high school, she's answering questions right now. So
But I believe this book is going to be, and I call it a project. I don't really just call it a book. I call it a project because
understood.
I want to get everybody involved once it's been published. I want everybody to be involved. This is a project that is going to really help us in the long run.
And I want listeners to hear that he spoke about that. This is just he wants that involvement as well, because as I'm listening, that when you know your history, you can take those proper steps moving forward towards the future. So
That's right.
we're going to dive into it. I got a couple of questions for you. What perspective or belief kind of challenged you when you were gathering this information and writing this book?
I think being nosy. Because when I first started, I started reading this stuff. And I was that before I started public school, back in the public school, my old job,
Right.
I would take my lunch break and go to the courthouse and start digging through books, because I was excited. I wanted to see what was next.
Yes.
To see all this happening way before the 1900s.
Right.
And nobody never talked about it. I wanted to see. I call myself today. I was telling this woman, I believe that I am a real historian now, because I can find anybody that you want. If you want to know anything about your ancestors, or you need to find someone, I can find.
That's
It's just I get hyped. When I talk about the history and I look at the history, I get hyped. I was talking to my congregation on Sunday about the Coffeeville Elementary School.
Mm-hmm.
Do you not know that school was built by a Black woman? The elementary school?
No.
Yes.
No.
Ed and Hattie Berry. Hattie Berry was the principal of their school, and they donated their land to the school in order for the school to be built right there where it is located at now.
Hold up. Time out. Hold up. You talking about that strip of land was donated and built by African American?
It was built by African American. It was through the equalization, I believe, program that they was giving people. But that's why all the schools are built on the same structure with the windows. You notice the windows in the hallways. That's why all those schools was built. And she and her husband donated that land where the elementary school is at now, and they named it Central High School. Mm-hmm. And the other one was the elementary school. I think was the Coffeeville Colored School. But they donated that land. And when she died, they carried her body there in the church. That's not the church, I'm sorry, in that school, in order from the people in the community to go in and out to view her body. And nobody never talked about that. Right there is Black history right there in Coffeeville.
Well, sir, it took me all these years.
That's right. That is right.
I did not know that. That is, I'm being educated here.
That's right.
Wow.
Before they changed that school over in 1970, her picture hung there in that building. And of course, in 1970, they took the pictures down. The Lord has blessed me to be able to go back and collect at least 10 years of the high school portraits that hung on the wall at the different schools which was Davidson High here in Water Valley, Central High there here in Coffeeville, and Walker High in Oakland. So I'm very excited. I can't wait to people who be able to look back and see what their parents looked like when they was in school before 1970.
Wow. And this is
that was a lot of work.
Right. No, yeah. I applaud you. Yeah, definitely. Because here's the thing, being in the Mississippi Delta, for a little bit of time and just being in the different schools, that was one thing that you saw. That person that either started the school, one of the first, classes, the first principals. That's what you saw. That's what you see in the buildings, on the walls. You see the remembrance. So to hear you say that is like, oh
yeah. Yeah. It's going to be very, like I said, this book is very in depth. That's why it took me so long, because I didn't want to miss anything. Because, you all like me, we want to see what happened, see where we come from.
Right. Yes. I guess I've heard the time that you put into it. And I guess maybe you might have answered this, but I'm going to ask it. What part of the book was the most fun to write?
The fun part of the book, I think it was I don't know, because I've been in education for so long, but I think it's the education part. And the reason I said it, and I said education part, that includes all the teachers and all the one that helped build up the education for all our African Americans before 1970. That was the most fun part, because I was able to look at some of the teachers where they taught school with the long skirts on.
Right. Yeah.
I have pictures of that, of when they was going off to school, the long skirts on, versus close to 1970 when they wore the really short mini skirts to school. Yes, and to be able to see the different, of how these teachers actually went off to college. They really was determined to get that education, and how they went off to college to be able to get that degree. And it took them, it takes us 4 years now to obtain our degrees. But do you not realize it took them 6 and 7 years, summer months, they was going off to school and working toward their degree, and they actually stuck to it. They stuck to it. They didn't give up.
Yeah.
And that was just the most interesting thing for me.
Oh, man. So I think I'm going to get a copy for you. So we talked about one of the, and this is enriching. We talked about the most fun, but what was some of the hard times in writing?
The hard times in writing was the church histories. And the reason the church histories was the hardest thing to write is because doing back then, and we're talking about early, mid 1800s, when churches was under the harbor bush, and people did not really document the history.
Right. It makes sense. Yeah.
So I had to go to the courthouse and go through every book. I don't know if you ever went to the courthouse and seen those big binder books they have.
Right. Right. Yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I had to go to the courthouse and go through every book, word from word, to try to identify I won't say the colored church, because that's what they list them as, the colored church. But I had to go through every book in the courthouse to identify each church. And then I had to go back and try to find the churches, because you see, you have some churches that's non-existent now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And a lot of history has been just thrown away.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
And a lot of people do not have histories of their churches. So to be able to go back, and that was probably my most challenging chapter right there, with the church history.
I can understand that.
Because you have to have the right people. You have to have the right people in the right places.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just throw anything out there and say, this is history.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to, in order to really to be able to gather this information, I had to go to the cemeteries to find the oldest grave. Now, mostly because there was a cemetery, there was a church.
Yeah.
But you have to, it was a trick to that. Most of the cemetery, or most of the graves, did not have a headstone.
Oh, no.
So that means you had to go back and try to find the oldest headstone that was located there in that cemetery to even see if that church was even established during that time period.
Oh man, you
scratch your head.
I scratch my head. I'm like, because I'm listening to, when you talk about research, it's extensive, but to hear what you had to do to get this, so that we all are educated on your findings, is yeah. Thank you.
It wasn't an easy task,
right? You're saying that it could have been finished years before, but because of you went in these particular avenues, it took longer. Yeah, I understand that.
I learned this. I hope you all don't mind me calling the churches out. There was a church, and I had to go to that church to tell them they were in Coffeeville, and it was Bethlehem. They had their history was 25 years later than what they actually church started. When it started, was founded. I had enough information to go back to them to tell them, you all are 25 years behind.
Oh, wow. So there was
another church I had to go back and tell them that their church actually had started prior. A couple of years prior. I had to show them where it was located at. If you look at Mount Zion, I think you were from Mount Zion. That church actually started. It didn't start there on top of the hill there. That church started across the street. What had happened was that church was Mount Zion was located in the old Presbyterian church, Coffeeville Presbyterian Church. That was across the street where the main church is at today. All of the white community after the war, that was the war zone before the school was built, before the churches was built. That was a war zone there in Coffeeville. So they left that church, and the reason they left that church because it was used as a hospital for all the ones that had got hurt or wounded in the war. So after the war, the white community picked up everything and moved downtown to Front Street where they're at now. But they left the church. And that is how Mount Zion ended up starting out there in the white church. And as years went on, that church fell down, we're going to say, and they ended up moving across the street to the church they had, not this church, not that church. It's probably 3 more churches before that.
Sir, Thank you. I've scratched my head about 5 times now because you got me going back to Coffeeville to do some looking around.
It's deep. This Yalobusha County history, and that's what I've been just I'm wondering how any of the other neighboring towns have they did a history of their towns, Grenada and Bruce, other areas. How deep in the history have they gone to find out about where they got started at? I'll put it that way.
Right. I wonder too, because it's got in my wheels to turning that, we've talked about, somewhat of Coffeeville, even looking at Water Valley, and then looking at Oakland and all those areas on, we see stuff where it is right now.
Right.
But what you just said to me, I'm like, hold up, wait a minute. I didn't learn this in school, and I'm right into town. Yeah.
I want to throw this right here, DJ. I don't want to take up too much of time. We're gonna talk about the first existing town was Hendersonville. Are you familiar with Hendersonville?
Not familiar. I don't know why.
Hendersonville is the first existing town here in Yalobusha County. It was located there in the Bryant community. There was only one white church in the Bryant community, and there was only one black church in the Bryant community. So what church was moved from the Bryant community to where is it now?
I'm assuming the white, though. I don't know. Which?
Pleasant Grove.
I got it now. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. So I got it. Yeah, I know the area. Okay, gotcha. Right. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So that would be considered as the first African-American Baptist church here in Yalobusha County, because it came out of the first existing town in Yalobusha County.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So somebody know a little history here, sir. I don't know if she typed it before or after. I'm going to give her no credit.
Pleasant Grove. Pleasant Grove came out of the Bryant community. Before it was Bryant, it was Hendersonville, which was the first. It was the first town that existed in Yalobusha County before Water Valley, before Oakland, before, Oakland, Preston and Scobie, all those came in. But, that's right. That's an old church. And I had to speak at their church one Sunday for their church anniversary. And I had to tell them, I'm sorry, I don't want to change your history, because history was not documented. But this church is older than what we're claiming it to be.
Wow.
And record, and I'm not telling you what I assume. I'm telling you what has been written down in our early 1900s. I want to tell you something interesting, what I looked up at. There was a guy, he was a white guy. He came to me one day. He said, Cal, I have a box. One time he knew I was doing the project and all. He said, I have a box that you may be interested in. He said, my father had this box. It is in the storage, outside in the storage. But I'm gonna pull it out because you may be interested in it. I don't know what's all in there, but if you want it, you can have it. Do you not know that when he brought me the box and I started reading, it was I don't know if you're familiar with it, but he brought me a box of the WPA records, which was the research of Yalobusha County that was written in 1934.
Oh man, that was a gold mine.
That was a gold mine right there. There was very little African American history there, but it was enough for me to see where I was going. So, what would you believe? Would you believe if somebody told you something in 2022, or if somebody told you something that happened starting in 1936?
Right.
And that guy was the historian during that time.
Man, that's all you talked about, puzzle pieces, right? My goodness. Yeah. That was oh wow.
I'm excited. I'm excited because I'm excited for everybody to be able to, the community will be able to read where we got started and where we're at today, how we got here today.
Yeah. So yeah, it's time we're okay. Yeah, because I want to I want to know now. I guess I'm nosy. I'm nosy now. I want to know because I remember hearing about the Bryant community. And I'm just curious to see about the surrounding towns in Yalobusha County on what um even families, all of that. Like I would like to know now. So you know, I'm gonna try to wrap this up, but this is good to me.
Well, yeah, when you get this book and you read there was a woman that was from Water Valley that was the fiance of Sammy Davis Jr. and she was a jet model. That's gonna, like you said, you'll be shocked to see that when you see that the first African American cartoonist, a presidential cartoonist, was born right here in Water Valley. When you see that the some of the professional baseball players, was born here in Yalobusha County, right here. It was a shock to me to see a lot of this. I'm going to say this, and I'll let you. I want to cut you off. But if you all familiar with the Oklahoma Sun, it's a newspaper. It was the oldest African American newspaper in Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
That the man that he was a good one. He was born right here in Water Valley, but left Water Valley in 1910 and moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Tulsa Star. That's the name of the newspaper. The Tulsa Star. Started working for a newspaper company. Now the newspaper is the oldest African American newspaper in the world. And this man was born in Water Valley, Mississippi.
All right. The viewers, you're listening, you need, I'm going to tell y'all what to do. When this book comes out, you need to get it. And we don't want no saying to get on the book. We want you to definitely go out and get it. Just this interview has, it's got me that I wanna know more. I'm definitely going to get the book. We got here. Jennifer Gaston can't wait to read it. So, what's something I didn't ask that you would like to share?
I almost feel like I don't talk too much.
Oh no, sir. We have to be educated. No, sir.
That's right. But I believe, like I said, I believe this book is going to be a help for each reader that reads it. Mm-hmm. And I always tell people, it's not about me. I tell people, Minister Kimball, it's not about me because I wasn't born until 1972. Mm-hmm. And this history was done before we was all even born.
Right.
Before 1900. So that it's going to really be a lot of help for us in our African American community. And not only just for us, I believe in other areas, it's going to be a help.
Absolutely. I can't wait. And I know it's in the process of getting coming out. How can viewers, get in contact with you, check your social media, or how?
We're going to, of course, we will have a lot of announcements. Yeah. We're going to have the book signing, but it's not really a book signing. It's going to be more of a exhibit, African American exhibit, so people can actually walk around to be able to see the pictures of the different African Americans. And but the Amazon is going to be the biggest seller that you can order from.
Reverend Hawkins, man, I've dearly enjoyed having you on tonight.
Thank you.
And towards the end, I usually ask my guests to 3 words you want to leave with the viewers. And well, you have the floor, sir.
The 3 words it would be learn your history. Learn your history. How can you tell where you're going if you don't know where you've been? Learn your history. Because there's somebody out there that feel that they cannot do it. If our ancestry did it, why can't we do it? Because we're looking at 1870, 1860, all our ancestry was slaves. Not realizing we actually had ancestors that went to college.
Right.
College does not start with us. College started over 150 years ago. And if they did it from what all they went through, we can do it too.
Definitely. I have duly enjoyed having you on tonight. I can't wait until the press release and your project is out. I'm excited. And to think in this little old county called Yalobusha,
Yalobusha County.
There's such rich history.
It is.
So definitely thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is Miss Armstrong. Bring Armstrong. Very interesting. Love it. Definitely love it. So, sir, thank you so much for coming on. And again, check social media's press release as this information comes out. Thank you so much for coming on Transforming Lives. And this concludes our show.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
All right. Thank you for coming on.
Okay.